Testing, testing. Okay, so we're on the record for case number 9778. Mr. Burkowski.
Yes, we only have two presentations today. By the way, good morning, commissioners. We only have two presentations today, staff and Maryland Energy Administration, and we'll start with staff and let them introduce themselves.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Michael Dean on behalf of staff. Along me, I have DeAndre Wilson, and I will have one preliminary matter. I have a statement. Staff needs to remove an incorrect statement made in the status report on DER and DERA cybersecurity filed pursuant to Commission Order number 91603 and case number 9778, which was filed on October 11, 2025. The statement is found on page 11 of the report under the final recommendations. It states the final recommendation suggests that Maryland consider regulating DERAs as public service companies and formally classifying them as critical super infrastructure. The Office of Cybersecurity maintains that these entities must be included in the critical infrastructure category, particularly regarding cybersecurity. Such a classification would enable the Public Service Commission to subject DER and DERA operators, owners to the same COMAR cybersecurity standards currently mandated for electric, gas, and water utilities. Staff would like to withdraw this statement as this should not have been made in the final version of the report. We have determined that DERAs do not fall within the statutory definition for critical superstructure, and this recommendation should not have been included in the report. With the Commission's permission, staff will file a corrected version of the report later this week. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So noted.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. DeAndre Wilson on behalf of technical staff. Today, we will be presenting staff's review of the utility conceptual reports filed by each of the utilities at the direction of the Commission. This presentation provides staff's technical and regulatory assessment of the utilities conceptual reports filed under order number 91603. Our review focuses on the utility's readiness to support distributed energy resource aggregation, virtual power plant deployment, and compliance with FERC Order 2222. We evaluated the maturity of system architectures, operational capabilities, cybersecurity practices, and alignment with Maryland's broader grid modernization and decarbonization goals. The findings presented here highlight both progress and areas where additional direction or coordination may be necessary. Next slide. Background and context. Maryland's effort to implement FERC Order 2222 are closely tied to the state's broader grid modernization and climate objectives. The Commission's directive under Order number 91603 required utilities to submit conceptual reports addressing DERMS, DER registration, device-level metering, customer data sharing, and communication protocols. These filings represent the first coordinated statewide assessment of the systems and processes needed to support DER aggregation and VPP operations. Staff's role was to evaluate whether these plans are technically sound, cost-effective, and aligned with regulatory requirements and policy goals. Next slide. Why virtual power plants matter. Virtual power plants allow Maryland to harness customized customer-cited resources such as solar, storage, and electric vehicles as dispatchable grid assets. This capability reduces peak demand, enhances distribution system reliability, and supports the integration of renewable energy. VPPs also enable customers to participate in energy markets, creating new value streams. Achieving these benefits requires accurate telemetry, secure communications, and interoperable control systems, all of which depend on the maturity of DERMS platforms and related infrastructure. Next slide. Key findings. Overall, the utilities demonstrate meaningful progress toward the foundational capabilities required for VPPs and DER participation in wholesale markets. Though the level of maturity varies significantly across service territories, DERMS deployment timelines are not aligned, which may create uneven operational readiness. Utilities have adopted cost-efficient approaches to DER registration, but these systems will require future standardization to support integration with PJM's DR hub. Device-level metering remains technically constrained and is not yet suitable for broad deployment. Communication protocols are converging towards IEEE 2030.5, but security frameworks will need to evolve as DER penetration increases. Staff's overarching position is to support phased, cost-effective implementation while emphasizing interoperability, cybersecurity, and scalable architectures. Next slide. First, we wanted to speak on or talk about the DERMS implementation. Next slide. DERMS platforms are essential for managing high levels of DER penetration. They provide real-time visibility into DER operations, support forecasting and load modeling, and enable utilities to control and dispatch DERs in coordination with distribution system needs. While all utilities propose phased DERMS deployment, the scope and maturity of these programs vary. This variation has implications for statewide interoperability and ability to support VPP operations consistently across service territories. Next slide. First, we have Exelon Utilities. BGE is the most advanced among the Exelon utilities, with the standalone DERMS scheduled to be operational by late 2025. This platform will support future integration of third-party DERs and VPP control algorithms. PEPCO and Delmarva, by contrast, are targeting a 2027 go-live date and are still in the early stages of scoping and design. Their later timeline may result in temporary inconsistencies in DER capabilities across Exelon Maryland's service territories, which could complicate statewide DER aggregation and VPP participation. Next slide. A few recommendations that staff provided in this report. Staff recommends that PHI consider accelerating its DERMS deployment by leveraging more of BGE's implementation experience. Aligning timelines will reduce fragmentation and improve statewide readiness for VPP operations. Staff also encourages Exelon to prioritize scalable architectures that support third-party aggregators and advanced VPP use cases. Customer and aggregator education will be essential to ensure program participation, and cost controls should be implemented to manage ratepayer impacts while exploring external funding opportunities. Next slide. Next, we have Potomac Edison. Potomac Edison proposes a two-platform DERMS architecture that separates operational DER management from customer-facing DER program controls. This approach may reduce risk in the near term, but delays decisions about long-term system integration. The utility plans to rely on third-party platforms for early pilots, including its DSSS and V2G school bus programs. While this is appropriate for initial testing, it may not scale effectively as DER participation grows. Next slide. A few recommendations that staff provides for consideration. Staff recommends the Commission provide clear guidance on long-term DERMS functional requirements to prevent redundant investments and ensure alignment with state VPP objectives.
What slide are you on? 'Cause-
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Cost allocation should be reviewed to ensure equity across customer classes. Staff will closely monitor the DSSS and V2G pilots as telemetry accuracy, performance, and customer participation will inform future DERMS procurement and design decisions. Next slide, please. Next, we have SEMECO. SEMECO's DERMS implementation is tied to a broader modernization of its ADMS and DMS systems, with full deployment extending through 2030. The cooperative is evaluating whether an enterprise DERMS is necessary to support long-term scalable and interoperability. Currently, SEMECO relies on vendor platforms to manage DER programs, which may limit flexibility as DER participation increases. The decision to adopt an enterprise DERMS will be a critical inflection point for SEMECO's future DER strategy. Next slide. A few recommendations that staff has provided. Staff recommends that SEMECO conduct a detailed cost-benefit analysis to determine whether an enterprise DERMS is warranted. Customer outreach will be essential to ensure participation in DER programs and maximize load flexibility. As DER telemetry increases, SEMECO must strengthen its cybersecurity and data governance practices. Staff also recommends establishing a framework for ongoing compliance monitoring to ensure alignment with regulatory requirements and FERC Order 2222. Next slide. Next, staff will provide its review of the DER registration and data sharing. Next slide. Utilities are taking a pragmatic approach to DER registration by enhancing existing systems rather than building new platforms. Potomac Edison is expanding its interconnection database. SEMECO is using a SFTP-based registry, and Exelon is enhancing Intelio Connect. These approaches minimize cost and implementation risk, but will require future standardization to support integration with PJM's DR Hub. Staff supports this least regrets strategy while noting that long-term scalability will require modernization. Next slide. Just a few recommendations that staff provides for consideration. Staff recommends targeted upgrades to existing systems to meet near-term registry needs while preserving flexibility for future registration. Annual confidential reporting will ensure transparency while protecting customer privacy. Collaboration with stakeholders will be essential to define future requirements, particularly as PJM finalizes DR Hub specifications. A phased approach will minimize risk and avoid premature investment in systems that may require redesign. Next slide. Next, staff provides its review of the device level metering. Next slide. Device level metering remains technically challenging due to the lack of revenue grade metering capabilities in most DER devices. ANSI C12 compliance is required for billing, and regulatory waivers would be necessary to use device level data for compensation. Implementing device level metering at scale would require significant investment and may impose substantial costs on ratepayers. For these reasons, staff does not recommend broad deployment at this time. Next slide. Just to outline some of the utility approaches to device level metering. Utilities are exploring device level metering through pilot programs. Exelon is testing device telemetry under the DRIVE Act. Potomac Edison is evaluating device level data through the DSSS pilot. And Semeco is considering smart service panels as an alternative due to AMI saturation. These pilots will provide valuable insights into the feasibility, accuracy, and cost of device level metering solutions. Next slide. For the Commission's consideration, staff recommends establishing a PC44 subgroup dedicated to metering and submetering technologies. This group can evaluate emerging technologies, assess regulatory implications, and develop recommendations for future programs. Regulatory modernization may be necessary to support device-level metering and VPP compensation models. Pilot results should guide long-term decisions to ensure cost-effective and technically sound solutions. Next slide. Lastly, staff will provide its review of the Commission communication protocols and cybersecurity. Next slide. Utilities are converging on IEEE 2030.5 as the preferred communication protocol for DER integration. This standard supports secure, interoperable communication between DERs and utility systems and enables real-time control and monitoring. Adoption of a common standard will reduce integration complexity and support statewide interoperability. Next slide. A few recommendations for the Commission's consideration. Staff recommends that utilities implement layered cybersecurity architectures to protect DER communications and ensure system integrity. A statewide approach to communication standards will promote consistency and reduce integration challenges for DER aggregators. Phased implementation aligned with DER growth will allow utilities to scale their cybersecurity and communication capabilities as needed. Next slide. You can go to the next slide. Overall, Maryland is making a steady progress towards implementing FERC Order 2222, but the pace and maturity of utility efforts vary. Durham's capabilities are foundational to VPP operations, and alignment across utilities will be essential. Device-level metering is not yet ready for broad deployment, and communication protocols are still evolving. Continued coordination among utilities, staff, and stakeholders will be critical to achieving Maryland's DER integration goals. Next slide. Staff's overall recommendations for consideration. Staff's recommendations focus on supporting phased DERMS implementation, strengthening DER registration systems, advancing metering pilots, and adopting standardized communication protocols. Ensuring affordability and equitable access remains a priority. These recommendations aim to ensure that Maryland's grid modernization efforts are technically robust, scalable, and aligned with long-term policy objectives. Go to the next. That concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available to address any questions from the commission.
Okay, questions from the commission. Mr. Zushman.
Morning, Mr. Wilson. Thank you for your presentation. Can you go to slide 8? I actually just have one question. And sort of going back to slide 7, it appears that the PHI companies are about 2 years behind BGE in terms of DERMS deployment. Is that your sense?
Yes.
Okay, so and that you are recommending that we direct acceleration of PHI DERMS deployment. Do you have a sense of the timing of that? And when do you think that because you want the PHI companies to catch up to BGE, and you want them to catch up in an accelerated fashion. So you have a specific recommendation about how much time we give them?
I do not have a specific time as to when they should accelerate, but we feel that with the support of BGE and what they have accomplished with their DERM systems, there may be opportunities for PHI to explore to further accelerate their programs. As far as a time frame, I don't have a time frame.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
So at our last hearing, we talked a lot about the utilities' preference to have registry development occur individually. But there were some parties here who were recommending more of a statewide registry approach. Based on your presentation, and I'm reaching the conclusion that staff recommends and would prefer that each utility develop their programs individually.
We understand that there's a transition that's involved. And we believe that by taking a phased approach, we can better ensure that these systems align with state goals, they're technically sound, and we don't have to revisit a lot of issues that may occur if they were to immediately implement these systems. The utilities, several of the utilities have introduced the idea of upgrading existing systems while they're phasing in a statewide registry. We support that, but we want to make sure that we may want to provide some direction or some insight as to when that operational date will be, when we can see it operating statewide. Right, and another reason why we support what they have presented as enhancing existing systems is so that we can ensure that implementation does not to make sure we meet our targets, to make sure that they're ready, so that it doesn't hold up the process and we miss and we end up not meeting the targeted dates that we need for these programs to be operational.
So in order for us to make certain that we reach those dates with operational programs, is staff looking to, I guess, I don't want to use the word direct, but maybe perhaps the word is guide, the utilities on an individual basis to make sure that, because their programs are starting in different places using different technology, software, etc., that at the end we end up with a registry that is, I won't say similar, but is meets the goals that the state has.
Indeed. We are definitely willing to work with the utilities and for the utilities to work with stakeholders and distributed energy resource aggregators in order to ensure that the registry, when it's ready during this phased approach, meets what the state needs in order to successfully operate these programs that we're looking to become operational. Increased reporting may be necessary from the utilities in regards to how the steps or the phases and how things are being accomplished, or if they're being successfully accomplished. But yes, that's the idea that we are presenting, or that's
Okay.
our position.
So, at our last hearing as well, Exelon had made at their presentation, they referenced a new approach that that they were planning on introducing, or perhaps had already introduced at the work group level. So we were pretty much given just the high level details of it at their presentation. And several parties followed them and expressed strong interest in what they had proposed. So my question for staff is, are you familiar with this proposal? And if you have any thoughts on it, it'd be good to know what they are, so that we are at least familiar with and aware of where this concept is, and if it's something that we should be looking to hear more about.
If you could, are you speaking specifically of DER registry, or would that be the Intelio Connect
Yeah, I
system?
believe that's what they were referencing as, yeah.
I'm not an expert, or I'm not familiar with this particular system, but what I have learned is that it has several capabilities for the company that it's utilizing, leveraging now within this particular systems. From what I heard, they said that they could enhance that system in order to accommodate DER integration and VPPs and these other programs, and it will provide them also with weather data, additional weather data, things of that sort. So we're in support of, to that approach, learning more about it, and possibly other utilities exploring that. We would like to hear more about that system and what their plans are as to how they would enhance that to meet the state's goals.
Okay. I think that's it. I had a couple of thoughts on cybersecurity stuff, but I don't think that's necessary for now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Barbe.
Obi more or less read my mind. Those
Yeah.
are the topics that I want to talk about. So I think I'm good.
All right.
Commissioner McLean.
Good morning. In terms of the cost estimates for the DERMS implementation, did staff find those to be reasonable, or are those just kind of early estimates and you need more information?
We didn't examine those cost estimates, but we did notice that BGE presented an estimate higher than the other utilities. But they are implementing a standalone DERMS and have been working on it for some time. But we would probably want to see more information, see that kind of how they plan on where these investments are being utilized, and if they're being utilized efficiently in order to meet the requirements that the commission has set.
Okay. And in follow-up to Commissioner Suchman's questions about PHI and possibly accelerating their implementation of DERMS, do you know whether or not, A, that's even possible, and if it is, the potential impact on costs? Because I'm sure it's going to be more expensive if they have to go quicker.
Yeah, at this point, staff doesn't have a clear understanding of the impact or cost impacts of accelerating the program. At this point, we just feel as though there could be an opportunity for the company to accelerate that, and they can provide us details as to whether that's possible, and and of any cost impacts that may be if directed to do so.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So one of your recommendations when it came to the Exelon utilities was to implement structured customer and aggregator education. But I noticed you didn't include that for any of the other utilities. I mean, shouldn't that be something that all of them should consider?
Yeah, that's definitely something we would support all of the utilities.
Okay, so
Utilizing.
the next question is, I mean, do you have a view of what this education would look like? I mean, what topics it would consider? Is this something that staff would sort of create or is this going to be developed as part of a work group process involving all the various parties?
Just probably something that we would want to see the utilities present to staff or to the work group to get a consensus from some of the stakeholders and developers as to how they can, what type of programs might be needed. Stakeholders and aggregators may have information as to what exactly those targeted educational programs should be, how they could better be leveraged. So, but overall, just to ensure that we get a increased participation in these programs, we support education, expanding education from the utilities to with these programs and their constituents.
Staff made that recommendation for PHI due to the stage of their development of the systems.
So, is your view that the others aren't quite there yet, or?
The others are a little bit further along in that phase of the implementation.
We also pointed out that we recommended that for SEMECO as well.
Okay. Okay. All right. I think that's all we got. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the last presentation will be from Maryland Energy Administration, Haley Kotzker. Just tell me when to forward the slides.
Good morning, Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Haley Kotzker. I'm an Energy Policy Manager at the Maryland Energy Administration. MEA appreciates the utility's responsiveness to our comments last week, and we're encouraged by the updates and look forward to collaborating with them. MEA's consultant is working jointly with ComEd on their DERMS rollout and data access platform in Illinois, which is what our recommendations are grounded in our presentation. We're happy to jointly collaborate on building out these roadmaps, given MEA's experience, and work with the consultants a part of the ComEd Illinois case. So the 5 issues I'll be continuing the discussion on today have a broad reach across dockets. We prepared this visual aid to help underline the gravity of the decisions that the Commission will make in response to this technical conference. Each of these 5 issues are truly foundational to the future of customer affordability in Maryland's rapidly evolving grid. In our written filing, we highlighted 3 key flexibility strategies to support long-term, sustainable, clean energy in Maryland that reached all 5 of the key issues of this technical conference. To be frank, Maryland is behind the ball with establishing necessary support mechanisms for the drive pilots and in preparation for unlocking the full value of FERC 2222. To conceptualize where we need to be, I point to the maturity chart in our written comments. We need utilities to adopt and implement DERMS and customer data sharing and move as quickly as possible in order to meet timelines for state goals, such as the state's energy storage goal, drive pilots, and FERC 2222 implementation. MEA's 2 most urgent asks are, 1, DERMS should be ready to support realization of DER values pre-drive pilot, and 2, customer information sharing should begin immediately as a foundational market requirement and to deliver full AMI customer value pre-Drive Pilot. To clarify, MEA is not advocating for pushing the Drive Pilots to slow roll DERMS, and we recognize that this will be costly, but it is necessary to implement this now for long-term customer affordability. Historically, we've matched load growth with build, but we cannot afford to keep doing that to match the projected rate of electrification over the next 15 years. The most effective course of action is to utilize what we already have constructed and unlock its full value to the grid. We need an integrated toolkit to efficiently utilize the current system and to defer and pace system upgrades. This will be a paradigm shift for the utilities and many of the stakeholders involved in this technical conference. This technology did not exist 15 years ago to the extent of its present-day capabilities, but we need to start working as a team with the utilities now to maintain open lines of communication and rapidly build out these necessary tools to meet impending deadlines. These three key flexibility methods are the foundation of the toolkit we discussed in our filing in order to fully unlock the DERs that exist on the grid today. In the first row, we're looking at dynamic flexible interconnection to defer expensive upgrades now locally. In the second row, we're looking at addressing local grid constraints on the distribution grid. And on the third row, with transmission DER grid services, we're bridging the gap between unlocking value and deferring expensive upgrades to encourage customer deployment. This graphic represents a constraint scenario where load exceeds current system limits. On the left, we have business as usual, where utilities would build to match load growth with an upgraded substation. On the right, we've utilized dispatched DERs, including VPPs, to defer system upgrades. The key to why this works is curtailment on both sides of supply and demand. This graphic represents a constraint scenario where the utility limits interconnection due to traditional hosting capacity limitations. On the left, we have business as usual, building to match load, and on the right, we're utilizing flexible interconnection by implementing DERMS to manage DERs effectively in real time. This unlocks DER capacity that the business as usual scenario would not be available for grid support. It defers expensive system upgrades by getting the most out of everything we have on the grid and increases VPP capacity. MEA emphasizes in our written comments the key role that the Commission can play in coordinating DERMS deployment in a staged, swift, and organized manner. MEA recommends the stages of deployment should first begin with centralized DERMS, utility asset communication, then scale up from there as we represent in our sample roadmap on the next slide. This represents a crawl, walk, run scenario for implementation of DERMS in Maryland. First, we're unlocking DER capacity today. Second, we're addressing local constraints. And third, we're delivering the value of DERs on the bulk power system. In terms of the Drive Pilot, MEA recognizes that the results of the pilot should be replicable at scale to which full utility programs operate. Otherwise, the results of the pilot fail to deliver an accurate testing environment to scale off of. MEA recommends BGE use their DERMS this year to integrate and dispatch third-party DERs. For context, ComEd in Illinois has scaled to start doing this across 240 megawatts of DERs. BGE should absolutely begin with these demonstrations this year. PHI should also do this as well and use their ADMS to do similar, just as BGE initially did. This is so that they can provide capabilities which can then be scaled with DERMS. We support this broader rollout of cyber infrastructure, and it's important to note that there are ways to still integrate with third parties in secure ways to prove out these capabilities in the interim. It is our understanding that ComEd Illinois' cyber rollout is ongoing and was only after extensive demonstrations with alternative approaches. There should be a similar and clear path to integrate pilot edge DERMS. Overall, the utilities should be moving much faster. There are more nimble ways to unlock value and look to ComEd's lessons learned to do so. ComEd has gone from DERMS demonstrations to full-scale third-party integrations this year in just 9 months. MEA is willing and ready to work with the utilities to identify more nimble strategies. ComEd, an Exelon sister utility, convened with stakeholders in Illinois to establish a robust customer data sharing platform. As of now, this group is working on version 2.0 of their platform to address stakeholder concerns, as highlighted by Utility API in their comments in this technical conference. We do not need to reinvent the wheel here. Other states, including Colorado, as mentioned last week on the data panel, will provide us with a strong jumping-off point. MEA recommends that the Commission set clear deadlines for a customer information sharing work group, beginning as soon as possible and spanning 3 to 4 months, completing work by spring of 2026 to embark on this urgent effort. As seen in the filings and last week in this hearing room, we have an incredible community of data access folks participating in this technical conference. Let's establish a swift timeline now and knock this out while we have everyone's ears. Maryland has been paying for AMI meters for decades, and customer data access usage largely sits idle, as reported on. We are paying for this and not seeing the full benefits. Customer information sharing delivers the full value of DERs through sizing solutions, VPP enrollment, and market participation. I'll clarify that Green Button Connect is specifically related to customer data access. This would ideally be the first component of a broader platform that makes other types of data available, but Green Button Connect is a fairly standardized platform and can be implemented today. We're asking the Commission to move forward and implement Green Button Connect's platform to create a unified market experience, adopt ComEd's customer data information sharing requirements as a straw proposal, and establish a working group to refine these requirements moving forward in Maryland. We would like to emphasize the importance of taking quick action on customer data information sharing as a foundational step, with ideally a proposal from a working group in the next 4 months. Thank you for the opportunity to comment, and this concludes MEA's comments today.
Okay, Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
I was curious to know, so you mentioned that you have, you used both what's happening at ComEd and in Illinois as some of the guidance for your proposals and recommendations here. Is MEA in touch with your counterparts in those states to see, perhaps to have some lesson learned from those states as to what Maryland's governing side could be doing to help facilitate creating a similar successful scenario here?
Absolutely. So we've begun those conversations through the consultant that we've hired, and we're happy to continue those conversations and provide some written comments on a conversation that we have with them regarding that.
Okay. Do we know if the success that ComEd has achieved has been replicated across other parts of New York, for example, or is it?
So I believe it's ComEd Illinois that we're referring
Illinois,
to.
I'm sorry.
And I am not sure on that, but I can follow up.
Okay. All right. Well, that was it. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Barbe.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a probably impossible to answer question, but I'm going to do it anyway. So in this whole, I think you very astutely delineated centralized DERMS versus edge DERMS. In your experience with respect to Illinois, is there a ratio between those two that's ideal? I mean, from my point of view, centralized DERMS are going to have economies of scale, but they're going to take longer to implement, and edge DERMS can probably be deployed relatively quickly. Is this really just a matter of trying to stand both these things up as quickly as possible? Is there one that we should be emphasizing over the other? Just, do you have a feel for that?
I definitely think that we should not be emphasizing one over the other. I think they
Okay.
both hold unique value. In terms of the recommended timeline, the crawl, walk, run scenario that we presented, I think it would logically make sense for utilities to communicate with centralized assets first, as not necessarily as a pilot, but as a sort of testing ground, maybe before implementing DERMS with edge assets.
I mean, those edge assets are probably going to be more managed by aggregators, right? I mean, right?
Third parties, correct?
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for me for right now.
Okay, Commissioner McLean.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. In terms of the Green Button Connect, I know MEA said you want it done today. Now, is today like 6 months? Actually mean 6 months, or?
I think we would say today, as in 4 months.
Okay.
We would like to push as quickly as possible on this, just to meet deadlines, especially for 22-22 implementation.
Understood. And is there a concern, there was a concern at least from the utilities that, going to a Green Button Connect right now would be a pretty significant financial impact. Is MEA concerned about that upfront impact, or do you believe that doing it now will save ratepayers down the road?
Absolutely. We'll save money down the road. We'll discuss this more in a rate case in the future, but MEA absolutely believes that this is if this is prudent to renewable energy development, that it should be done now.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Sushman.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up on Commissioner McLean's question with their numbers. So it's for the BGE PHI companies, it's 9.2 million upfront, an additional 3 million for ongoing maintenance. And I don't know if those are big numbers or small numbers. I mean, and how they work out in terms of the cost benefit ratio. Have you done the analysis to make sure that the benefits exceed those costs?
So we have not examined costs yet. We want some more information first on how they're being utilized, where they're being utilized, and as a part of a larger non-wire solution strategy.
Right. No, I mean, I've been talking about non-wires solutions for a while. I just want to make sure whatever approach we take it also takes into account the cost issue, because we are facing an affordability issue, and 12 million doesn't sound like a lot. Well, it sounds like a lot to me, but when you start to add 12 million here and 10 million there, and it starts to add up, those can be significant costs that ratepayers are paying. And I just want to make sure, I mean, if we're balancing that against building out more distribution wires, clearly 12 million investment is going to be beneficial instead of paying 100 million for building out the systems. But I think it's important that we do the analysis to make sure that it does pan out. We can think that it's going to be cost effective, but I think it's really important that we make sure that those calculations are done. I also want to make sure that 9.2 million is right. And so, sometimes you put numbers in and they can be higher, especially if you're somebody that doesn't want to do it. They're thinking that the green button download is good enough. So I'd like to know that 9.2 million really is 9.2 million.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll do some more digging into that. And,
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Actually, I think everybody covered what I wanted to ask, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. This is Soumya Krishnamurthy from BGE. That's KRISHNAMOORTHY. I just wanted to make a couple of clarifications since there was some conversation about ComEd and BGE's and the Exelon Utilities numbers. The 9.5 million is a rough order of magnitude, and I think it comes with a plus or minus 50%. So once the commission gives us the go-ahead to go ahead and implement it, we will evaluate all models, because I think, Commissioner Suchman, you had also asked this question in the previous hearing. We will do an RFP to sort of evaluate multiple vendors, do a build versus buy decision, and then use the revised estimates from that to sort of build this out. This is just to give a sense of direction. And also wanted to add, since there was a lot of discussion about ComEd, just want to add a clarification regarding their data access work. Yes, ComEd has been engaged in an exploratory effort for the last 2 years to understand what data access and what grid sharing platforms they should build. However, this is yet to be filed with the Commission, and I think an order is only expected by the end of 2026. So I just want to sort of caution, and it's also not an inexpensive plan. We as BGE definitely want, and PHI definitely want to understand the work that they've done and incorporate the learnings from it. But I would just caution us from labeling it already as a success. Nothing has been implemented, and nor is there an approval for anything to be implemented as of now. Thank you.
Question? Sure.
Okay, don't go anywhere. So the work that ComEd has done, have you put in place a green button platform there?
I think, not an expert, but based on what I know, I think ComEd already has a Green Button Connect platform
Okay.
in place, even before this exploratory effort may be started.
Okay, so the Exelon companies have some experience in implementing the Green Button Connect program. So you have some sense of how much it would cost.
Right.
So can you provide the commission with the cost of implementing the program for in terms of the ComEd program, so that we have kind of a sense of, it's sort of hard to tell you to go ahead and do something if it's plus or minus 50%. That's a pretty big range. So I would feel more comfortable if we had a sense of how Exelon has done in terms of implementing the Green Button Connect program in one of your sister utilities.
Are you asking for what it cost ComEd, and I don't know which year they implemented
Yes.
it, on the year that they did
Whatever
it, to
year they
see
did,
what
yes.
the actual cost
What the
were,
actual cost is.
acknowledging that BGE will still do an exploratory effort, and
No,
or PHI will still.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's just that a 50% range that's a big range. So I would just feel more comfortable if we had a better sense of how it was done in one of your companies, and it's not just the implementation cost, but it's also the maintenance costs, since that was included in what was provided to us.
Sure,
Okay.
we can get that over. Just also want to call out that may not
Okay,
necessarily be
so
the
that
cost.
is that's a bench request. So
Sure.
if that can be provided to us.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So actually, one sec. Anybody else have any questions for? Okay, all right. Thank you very
Thank
much. Is that it? Okay, I guess with that, we're adjourned. So I want to thank everybody who came before us and presented the information, and particularly Mr. Burkowski and Annika Barth, who helped organize the hearing. I thought it went quite well. So thank you.